Reggie here, and I want to welcome you to another installment of the top 10 most submitted books into CGC video. This is a series that I've been doing for more than a year, but for the last few months, for a few different reasons, I've been unable to release this video to you, but now we are getting things back on track. In that last video, which was in March, looking at February data, I can tell you that things looked very different back then. To that point, what we saw in looking at the extended list of 20 books was essentially a mixed bag, where we had 3 books on the list from Boom, 3 from Image, 1 from DC, and 13 books from Marvel Comics. In this video, we'll be looking at those books that were submitted in the month of March. And again, this list looks very different than what we saw back in February. In fact, 19 of the 20 books on the list come from Marvel. There is only one book that does not come from Marvel that is on the list. And if you want to know what that book is, stay tuned. But I'm also going to highlight a couple of first-time books that have just made the list. And there are a few surprises that I think that you'll enjoy. Before we get to the list, I want to acknowledge the sponsor of this video, Hip Comic. If you have not been to Hip Comic, I encourage you to use the link in the description to head over to the website right now. On that website, what you're going to see is an amazing selection of comics. In fact, they have more than 1 million comics currently available for sale. And every single week, they host auctions where collectors can bid on rare and awesome key comics starting as low as 99 cents. Again, the link is in the description. Check them out today. Number 10 on the list is Spiderman 2099 issue number 1. And this book is the first appearance and the origin of Spider-Man 2099. The current spec on this book is that this character will have a spin-off live-action movie, which might be why it actually appeared on the list and cracked the top 10. This book, published by Marvel Comics, was released in 1992, and at present, there are 5,100 graded copies of this book on the CGC census. The most abundant grades on the census are the 9.8 and the 9.6, which account for more than 3,600 copies out of 5,100 copies. At present, the 9.8 has an FMV of $180 with a 30-day average price of $205. It's definitely going to be interesting to see whether this book stays on the list or whether it slides a little further down. Number 9 on the list is Wolverine Issue number 1, but the limited series. This book has been on and off the list over the last year, but the reason that I think that it cracked the top 10 is because of the recent signing at CGC by Chris Claremont. At present, there are 21,000 copies of this book graded by CGC across all grades. The 9.8 has an FMV of $800 with a 30-day average of $877, both of which are down from the 1-year average of $920. This is an awesome book, without a doubt. It is an awesome book, and as I mentioned, it's been on the list off and on, but I think the reason why it's so high on the list, if you will, is because of the signing. It's going to be interesting to see if the book maintains this position moving forward or whether it falls a little bit lower on the list where it has been historically over the course of the last year. Number 8 on the list is another Wolverine book. This one is from the ongoing series, specifically issue number 1, which also happens to be the first appearance of Wolverine as Patch. Like the last book, this book is probably high on the list because of the recent Chris Claremont signing. There are currently 14,000 copies of this book on the census, including 1, 10, and 13 9.9s. This book at a 9.8 sells for substantially less than the limited series, with a 9.8 having a 30-day average of $574. Not exactly cheap, but definitely lower than the limited series, which was his first solo series. Number 7 on the list is the first appearance of Carnage, specifically Amazing Spider-Man issue number 361. I honestly expected this book to be off the list, yet here it is for another month. Since March, the total number of copies on the census has increased by almost 1,000 copies. As I mentioned in March, the value of this book had eroded and continues to erode. At virtually every single grade, the 30-day value is lower than the 90-day value, which is lower than the 1-year average. My guess is that this trend will continue. Number 6 on the list is Ultimate Fallout issue number 4. And no, we are not talking about the facsimile version, which I've spoken about off and on for the last couple of weeks, but we are talking about the real deal Ultimate Fallout issue number 4. This book has managed to retain a lot of its value at a 9.8. The 1-year average for this book is $2,900, whereas the 30-day average is $3,200, with recent sales at or above that number. At present, there are 13,000 copies of this book on the CGC census, and to be honest with you, I think we're going to see more of this book come in, and I think that the values will hold. This book is not one that seems to fluctuate all that much with its value. It is still selling for a healthy amount of money pretty frequently. Number 5 on the list is Venom Lethal Protector issue number 1, the second shiny foil book on the list. Last time I released this video in March, I highlighted that the value of this book had declined, and that trend continues. The 30-day average has only declined a few dollars. However, the FMV has dropped by $20. At present, there are 14,834 total graded copies of this book on the census, with 7,000 of them being a 9.8. It is going to be interesting to see what happens, whether more people submit this book in and if the values continue to erode month after month. Number 4 is Venom IV from the current ongoing series written by Ram V and drawn by Brian Hitch. This book features the first appearance of Carson as Spearhead, the second cameo of Bedlam, and the debut of the new Venom logo. While this book has a lot going for it, the real reason that it's on the list is because it is a BAM Box exclusive. Every single month, BAM Box puts together a mystery box that includes a 9.8 signature series book. This month, it's Venom 4. And so at some point in the future, hopefully someone will show me what this book actually looks like, because as of right now, I have no clue. Number 3 on the list is Spawn issue number 1, the only non-Marvel book to make the list. And this book is one that has repeatedly been on the list month after month in some position or another, and here it is for another month. Since my last video, the census count on this book has increased by more than 1,100 copies, and the values continue to decline. The current CGC count is roughly 23,000 copies, and at virtually every single grade, the 30-day average is lower than the 90-day, which is lower than the 1 year. With that said, the last few sales of this book at a 9.8 have sold for around $200 versus the current Go Collect FMV of $180. Number 2 on the list is X-Men issue number 1. And as I've said repeatedly in previous videos, whenever this book has shown up, because of the way that the data is pulled together, I don't know which of the covers is being submitted into CGC. But this book was printed to the tune of 8.1 million copies back in the day, so we should not be surprised that copies are flowing into CGC. With that said, I did focus on the Magneto cover, which may be the more popular of the covers. This book had a value blip back in March, but appears to be settling down to where it had been previously. The most recent sales for this book are above the current FMV of $110, sitting at roughly $128. Now, with that said, we might actually see an uptick in the volume of this book sent into CGC because of the recent announcement of the Jim Lee signing that is going to take place. Number 1 on the list is Star Wars Darth Vader issue number 20, the variant edition. And I'll be the first to admit that I am not the biggest Star Wars fan, but I absolutely love The Mandalorian. And to that point, I am not surprised to see this book on the list, as it is the first cover appearance of Grogu. This 16-inch creature, often referred to as Baby Yoda, literally stole the show when The Mandalorian dropped back in 2019. It will be interesting, however, to see if this book stays on the list or if its appearance is a momentary blip, again because of the incredibly popular Grogu. As I mentioned at the top of the video, there are a couple of first-time books that have made the list. The very first one that I want to bring to your attention is the Savage She-Hulk issue number 1. I've been expecting this book to hit the list for some time due to the upcoming She-Hulk show on Disney+. I am a little surprised, however, that it took this long for the book to hit the list, but it presently sits in the 17th spot. Next up is Avengers Annual number 10, the first appearance of Rogue, who has long been rumored to be appearing in Captain Marvel 2. It still isn't clear to me if Rogue will appear, but the spec might be the reason why this book sits in the 19th spot. In the 20th spot is one of my favorite books from my childhood, Infinity Gauntlet issue number 1. This book may be on the list due to the George Perez signing that was scheduled but never occurred due to his passing. As we wrap up here, I want to again thank the sponsor of this video, Hip Comic. And if you haven't checked them out, you can use the link down in the description. If you enjoyed this video, I want to ask you to go ahead and hit the thumbs up button, leave a comment behind, and if you need to reach out to me, feel free to do so on Instagram at Regie Collects. Take care.